Hey everybody, Monty Reed here, and today I wanted to give you an update on nanotechnology. I recently came across a notebook of mine from when I was 12 years old, and or if I flip back from 12 years old, there are notes from, let's see, that was 12, 8, 9, so I was nine years old. 9 years old when I did the notebook. Was from when I was 12, but the actual notes on tiny hoses and plants goes all the way back to when I was 9, and there was in my dream hoses that were so small that you could plug it right into a plant. And so in the notebook, I'd drawn a picture of a plant. And in the plant, there's a natural process where water is sucked up through the roots, and nutrients, which are animal waste products, are sucked up through the roots of a plant, and that's a nourishment for the plant. So animal waste is plant food, plant nourishment, nitrates and other liquids. And that came up through the roots of the plant, and then it would go out to the leaves, and the leaves would take that gas waste, carbon dioxide, and the nitrates, the liquids from the soil, and would combine it through a process of photosynthesis. So you have these little chloroplasts that would take that animal waste of animal gas waste and animal liquid waste and turn it into food that the plant would use, but also it would produce an excess where the plant would release oxygen into the atmosphere, and also the sugar would go into the plant's fruit. And so it's not a waste product really, because that the fruit, the sugars would go into a plant, the plant's fruit, and then the fruit would surround the seed, so that when the seed landed, the animal would eat the fruit, and typically that seed would survive the digestive tract of the animal, and then the seed would be deposited with animal waste, so that the new seedling would have food to consume and grow. And so that's the natural life cycle. And when I was 9 years old, I sketched out in my notebook hoses that would connect directly to the roots. So you would stick the other end of the hose into a bucket of animal waste, whether that's the latrine in a developing nation where it's actually human waste, or if it's just the slop from the pig pen, whatever, the waste from animal waste. And that would go into the plant, and the chloroplasts would be held together in a chamber, and you would put sunlight on it, and the sunlight would use, because of that chloroplast, the chloroplast would convert the animal waste, the CO2 animal waste gas and the animal waste liquids would be converted through photosynthesis into sugar. And then that sugar normally would go from the plant down to be used by the plant, or to go into the fruit. And so in the drawings, I had hoses that once the chloroplast created the food, instead of it going down to the fruit, I put a little tap in there, and that hose would siphon off some of that sugar, and that would go and become food directly. And so the idea was actually for NASA, for long-term space travel, that an astronaut would be placed in a chemically induced coma, so they'd be put to sleep. And then you'd have a feeding tube and a waste catheter, catheter that would collect the liquid and solid waste. And then it would be turned into liquid and fed into this little box that would use sunlight from the sun, and you'd amplify it, obviously, so that when you're on a space probe from Earth all the way out to Jupiter, it might be a 2-year trip. Well, in those 2 years, while the astronaut is sleeping, the chloroplasts in this little box would turn the animal waste or human waste into food through photosynthesis, and then that sugar could be used to go back into the person in a feeding tube. Now, the other thing that needed to be solved for space travel is exercise. And so that's why NASA gave me a grant for the powered exoskeleton, powered spacesuit. And the powered exoskeleton for astronauts would be used during a drug induced coma. The person would be sleeping, but they would be strapped in, and the exoskeleton would run them through exercises while they sleep. So they're asleep, and the suit would do the exercises for them. And so the reason that works is the body has a natural reaction to movement. It's a resistance known as guarding. So, and the way you can test it is have someone grab your arm and pull. What happens? You naturally pull back. And that's not just a conscious action, but subconscious action. So when you move a paralyzed person's limbs, the muscles themselves have a guarding action and they fight back. And so you literally get this isometric reaction against the suit moving that person. And so while they're in suspended animation for 2 years, it's the closest thing. We don't have the freezers like you see in science fiction. But with current technology, you can put an astronaut in a drug-induced coma. You can put them in a powered exoskeleton so that they get exercise and their muscle tone is maintained. And then you use one of the chloroplast boxes to convert their human waste into human food. And so the chloroplast box would have a hose that takes in the waste liquids and the waste gas, converts it, and then you'd separate the O2, the oxygen, and the glucose, the sugar, and you would feed the astronaut with the sugar and also release the oxygen, the O2, into the air so that they could breathe. And so that's how the using this chloroplast box could be used to feed astronauts. Now, that's how it was designed when I was 9 years old, because at 9 years old, I always envisioned myself having a lab coat, this amazing research lab, and I was working for NASA and also coming up with all kinds of inventions. And so God's given me the opportunity, even though the experts told me I'd never go to college. I went to college. I was president of the Honor Society at the community college, also a member of the Honor Society at the University of Washington, a Mary Gates scholar and a NASA Space Grant scholar. And so in spite of the fact that they told me you'll never go to college, well, I did pretty well. And just thank God for that. And what I had designed originally for NASA, actually this technology doesn't have to wait for a space probe to Jupiter. What if we built these boxes and dropped them on the ground in developing nations in Nigeria? I mean, you literally have the community latrine where all the waste is collected, and you have a hose that sucks that out and use a chloroplast box to produce food. Wow. So I'm pretty jazzed about it. We're excited about it. I was just at a prayer meeting on Friday, and someone spoke a prophetic word that the millionaires and billionaires were going to be funding the project. So hopefully we will have an update soon on the new chloroplast box. Got to come up with a better name for it. You know, it's I don't know, maybe we'll call it the God Project 7 or Manna. Maybe we'll call it the Manna Box. Manna Box. I don't know. How's that sound? Manna Box. Anyway, pretty excited about it. And the thing that's really cool about this was 1976. Those tubes were really small. 1990, IBM funded a research where the letters IBM showed up on the head of a pin. And that's where the phrase nanotechnology was coined. And so what I've been talking to you about, what God showed me when I was 9 years old in a vision back in 70. Anyway, it was a while ago. And it was a few years before the term nanotechnology. But today, it's common. In fact, nanotechnology labs are common, and on most community college campuses have nanotechnology labs if they want them. And so nanotechnology is real. There's people looking for ways to use nanotechnology. This is one way we'll be able to feed the world with nanotechnology and the Manobox or chloroplast boxes. This is Monty Reed for YouTube with an update on nanotechnology, also what I refer to as biosynthetics. That is a term I coined in 2 research papers, one on biosynthetic inner ears and biosynthetic muscles. Now the term biosynthetics is commonplace used. Biosynthetics is the study of living systems and building of working copies for engineering, robotics, and rehabilitation medicine. This is Monty Reed for YouTube. Have a great day. Make sure you subscribe.
Keep thriving, my friends.